Food safe wood finishes. What is a good food safe finish? Okay, so we have wooden spoons, cutting boards, bowls, things made out of wood that we want to finish, we want to protect the wood. But at the same time, we don't want to get poisoned or harmed later on when using these objects in the kitchen. So what is a good option? Well, that's what we'll go over in this video, along with questions like, what does it really mean for a finish to cure? How do these finishes react to hot or warm food? And what was traditionally used before we had all of these options? If you walk into a woodworking store or a hardware store and you go to the finishing aisle, you'll quickly realize that there are a lot of options. Polyurethanes, varnishes, oils, waxes, different combinations. I mean, there's just a ton. And it can get confusing rather quickly. But I mean, when you're making a box or a piece of furniture, you don't care whether or not you can eat on that surface. However, when you make a spoon, it's a different story. Now there are two ways to look at this. There are A, finishes that are food safe, that you can use right away, or you can use the object right away. And then there's B, finishes that are safe once they're completely cured. And however long that takes varies from finish to finish. Now, the amount of finishes that are safe to use right away is quite limiting. In fact, this is one of them, mineral oil wax polish. And that's because mineral oil and beeswax are both safe to consume. Now you can either apply just mineral oil or just beeswax, or you can use like a combination as in here where you combine the two and get a wax polish. Now another option is coconut oil. However, I've never used that. But other than those two, that seems to be pretty much it. Now, the thing about these oils is that they sit on the surface. They don't cure. They stay kind of wet, which is why they're safe to be used immediately. And also, you know, they are safe to consume. So the other option are finishes that are safe to use as long as they have properly cured. So what happens when a finish cures? Well, basically the molecules react with oxygen in the air and they link together, forming like a solid, durable network. This is cured linseed oil on top of this film here, and you just remove this, and then the finish underneath is perfectly fine to use. And it's actually an example of how it's working, because this is what you want to happen on your wooden object. You want this film to develop. A tin that I left for it, and you can see that it developed a hard finish, like a hard coating. And it's almost like, it's very kind of weird. But this is what happens when the finish cures. And this is basically true for all other finishes. Tung oil, linseed oil, polyurethane, shellac, lacquer, all of these things need to properly cure. That's not to say that I would use all of those finishes on like a spoon, but all of those finishes cure. So why does curing take time? Well, curing depends on a bunch of different factors. The time spent will differ from finish to finish, but then we're also having the humidity, the temperature, things like that will affect the time also. That's why finish is often said like safe to handle after 24 hours and a full cure after 30 days. Because after 24 hours, it's dry to the touch, but it's still like chemically fragile inside. So personally, I have no problem using like raw linseed oil, and raw is the key here. You don't want to use like boiled linseed oil because it has metal dryers in it, and I don't want that like in contact with my food. But raw linseed oil or like tung oil on things from my kitchen, for as long as you let these cure properly. Now that is fine. Now the thing about that is you may think, oh, I don't mind waiting. And especially when you have just created something in the shop, like a bowl or a spoon or something, then you don't mind waiting. However, when it's something you're using every day in the kitchen, then you don't want to put that thing like aside and wait 30 days to use it. That's why having the mineral oil wax polish really works for that. But initially, you know, it's not a bad idea to use linseed or tung oil as long as you really give them that amount of time. The other great food safe finish is shellac. Now shellac it's a natural resin made from the lac insect. This dries relatively quickly compared to other finishes. If you've ever used it, it kind of creates this rather shiny surface. It dries really quickly, and I think it fully cures within like 24 hours, so pretty quick compared to many other things. And shellac is actually an item used in food production already, so it is definitely safe to use. It's used in like coating candies like M&Ms and dried nuts, and coating like citrus and apples to make them shiny and last longer. So you're probably consuming shellac as it is already. Also, shellac will dissolve in alcohol, so don't use it on a bar tray or anything that will come into contact with alcohol. Okay, so I was saying that any finish is like safe as long as it's cured properly, and that may technically be true. However, also think about how you're using something. Like, I would not put polyurethane or lacquer, which are synthetic plastic-based finishes, on like a cutting board. Even if that completely cures, you don't want something that could, like, you're chopping on, and that could get kind of like come off over time and integrate into your food. Like, I don't want to consume like plastic like that, so I just stay away from those kinds of things. Now this brings us to salad bowl finish. So salad bowl finish is a finish a lot of people use on food products. A lot of turners use it for bowls and things like that. And it's considered food safe. Now, what's inside salad bowl finish? It's not always clear on the packaging, but salad bowl finish is basically made from polyurethane or alkyd resins. So it's plastic-based, dissolved in solvents, and it may include drying oils like linseed oil or tang oil to help penetrate the wood, as well as dryers, metal salts, to accelerate curing. So this is not just like oil and wax. This is like closer to a polymerized oil varnish, like a thinned down version of polyurethane or spar varnish. It is considered food safe once completely dry. So that can take up to like 30 days, depending on the environment. However, again, I would not use it on cutting boards or anything like that. And I don't know. Personally, I just stay away from it. And I like to stick with oils and waxes, just because it is so natural and it is so safe. But salad bowl finish will stay like longer, like it will not wear off as quickly. So, something to consider, right? Now this is what I use for most of my kitchen related projects. I always apply mineral oil wax polish on my cutting boards and my spoons, and it does give them a really nice finish. So when applying this finish on an object, I got a piece of cloth here. You can use a paper towel or whatever. So I just take some, and then I apply it onto my object. So this is a walnut and maple cutting board. And like I said, mineral oil will not form a bond. It will kind of stay on the surface, which also means you want to be careful, like with letting this soak in water, like hot water, for a long time. Definitely don't put it in the dishwasher. That's true for any object, really, with any finish, even like shellac or cured oils. You want to stay away from the dishwasher with all of your wooden objects. One thing to note is this is not a forever finish. This is not something you can apply once and then be done forever. It's going to wear off over time as you use it, as you wash it, and that's just the nature of it. So, every couple weeks, every couple months, whenever you get to it, you reapply some. Yeah, I keep a tin like this in the shop for finishing or protecting like metal from rust. It's great for that as well, but I also keep a tin in my kitchen so that I often can reapply. And this is something that we make in our workshop. We handcraft these different kind of wax polishes and sell. So, if you want to pick one up, I'll put a link in the description. Now, you may wonder, like, what food safe finishes hold up well to hot or warm food? Well, that's kind of tricky. If you're using wax polish, wax will, naturally melt if it gets exposed to really hot temperatures. So if you're concerned about that, you may not want to go that route. Now, properly cured tung oil or linseed oil does form a barrier and is supposedly pretty good against hot liquids. Shellac is also relatively heat resistant, but only up to a certain point. In general, wood finishes and hot liquids don't really go together no matter what. Serving warm food, I think, is fine. Serving hot liquids, I don't know. Maybe use something else for that. Now, sometimes I get a question, people ask, well, how about, can I just use like vegetable oil or oils in my kitchen? And you might think, oh, yeah, like why not? But the thing is, they can go rancid over time. And that's not really a pleasant thing. So I would stay away from that. So here are the various oils that you can actually use for your wood projects. Mineral oil, tung oil, linseed oil, walnut oil. Although if you are dealing with someone highly allergic to nuts, I would maybe stay away from walnut oil. Of course, tung oil is also technically a nut oil. Usually not a problem once fully cured, but if you have somebody who's super allergic, maybe stay away from that as well. We also have things like coconut oil, hemp seed oil, and poppy seed oil, which personally I have no experience with, but apparently that is an option. So, okay, I'm talking about this, you have to let it cure, but what does it mean if it's uncured? Like, why is that a problem? Uncured oil will stay sticky, go rancid, trap bacteria, and may trigger an allergic reaction in the case of like tung oil or walnut oil. And that's because the molecules are still like raw. Whereas fully cured oil is stable and non-toxic and forms a safe barrier on the wood. So what did they use back in the days when they didn't have all of these options? Well, that's what's kind of interesting. They used beeswax and oils back then as well. So wax polish is a very old finish and a very safe finish. And this is why I use this most of the time. For 90% of all of my kitchen related stuff, I use mineral oil wax polish just because it is easier and you don't have to think about it as much. And then every now and then I do use the tung oil or linseed oil wax polish. But then you do have to remember to let it cure, give it some more time. So thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions about this. If you're interested in getting some wax polish, you can check out our shop. We also offer like wax pots, like little wooden boxes for wax polish, which are kind of cool. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.